going to do a roll call. Attendance, Richard Black.
Here.
Janet Miller-Schmidt.
Here.
Ed Provo.
Here.
Dwayne Permley.
Here.
Peter Beasley is on vacay. Marilyn Rodman.
Here.
Ivan Michelle Russell. Yeah. Alrighty. I am sure that everybody has read the minutes from last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? And if not, I need a motion to approve.
I'd like a motion to approve.
All right, I need a second.
Second. Richard
Okay,
second.
Richard. All those in favor? All righty. Boom. 2 out of 100 down. Staff and community reports. Planning staff, that would be Anya.
Yeah, just to recap, we hosted our Monteagle Town Hall meeting, our first one, on March 15th, and it was led by Greg Maloof and Janet Schmidt, and I think we got really good feedback. SETD went back and consolidated all the notes from that and sent it back to Janet, and I guess they're using that information to come up with goals and having town council respond to the next meeting, which will be, or I guess this meeting was February 15th, the next one will be March 15th.
March 15th.
And Janet, after this meeting, I'd like to talk to you about that.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Earl Gary.
I know.
Just want to report that as far as building permits go, I talked with City Council last night. For some crazy reason, I know what it is, permits are pretty much down right now. Everything's quiet. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is due to the price of material and being able to get material. I know some people are waiting 6 to 8 weeks on windows and things like this. So I really feel like that's probably the reason why permits are down right now. Still getting a lot of calls from all over the United States and maybe the world about zoning in Monteagle and what can go where and what can we do here and how do we do this, how do we do that. So that's always a good sign that progress is coming, in the future. I do want to report too, I'm down on the tiny homes. Last meeting, that super PowerPoint was put on by Southeast Economic Development District. Did a wonderful job, and everything looked good, with the exception of when they put the tiny home regulations up there. Monteagle did not adopt that particular part of the building code. Those appendices in any code book, unless they're adopted separately, are not part of that. So the appendix Q, which dealt with the tiny home regulations in the building code, was not adopted by the town of Monteagle. And I'm sure they just didn't realize that was part of the deal. But anyway, I want to get everybody clear on that. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody might have if I can.
Gotcha. So I think we're going to be moving on to adopting that. Isn't that part of our packet? The Q?
I hope not.
Okay, then never mind.
No, it's gonna be reviewed again.
Okay.
With Earl. We were gonna have a meeting with him.
Curveball.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Well, the negatory, we've got Q to look into. All right, any questions for Earl?
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Moving on to new business. Sweeten, Laurel Lake Drive subdivision, final plat. All right, come on up. What are we doing here?
Oh, we had 2/3 of this done about 10 years ago, I think. And what happened was, what's next? Call me dummy. But what I'm doing is, and I'll help Earl out here in just a day or two if we approve this. Everybody want one to look at?
We can probably, yeah,
We can share
we
this.
can share that one.
Yeah, maybe I
Okay.
have one down there.
Pass one down this way.
What's going on is I want to build a small small rental house, on the back lot back there. And this is what's going on. And it should give me plenty of room for, septic, it should give me plenty of room for everything. It's gonna be, I don't think I can build anything under, 900 square feet there, so what I'm gonna do is about 1,200 square feet.
So you're building on lot 3,
Yes, sir,
and you're building 2?
just one.
Just one, okay.
And then, of course, that leaves my options to do something else with this later.
Okay.
And as broke as I am, I won't do much later.
Whatever.
But I've got a lot of building material and stuff saved up that I can use here.
Yeah.
So,
And this is the road coming in off of
yes.
Royal?
Yep. And also, they flagged it over enough to get a power line through here also. And I'll probably run about 2 culverts here to stop it, put a transformer in and then.
Is that a city-owned road, or is that,
That's mine.
you put it in, okay?
Should have sent it to y'all.
All right. All right. Anya or Garrett, who's gonna talk about this?
I have one, but
Oh, go for it.
maybe you can answer. On our site plans like this, the plumbing,
Mhm.
do we not look at plumbing? We look at any utilities on our site plans.
They've gotta be signed off on by the utilities.
It should be like your signatures.
Right, and that's all I was gonna mention, is this is one of the rare plats that actually had no corrections needed, and I would recommend approval for it with, subject to all of the signatures being acquired for water, electricity, E911, and sewage disposal, which basically verifies that it has public water, sewer, and so on.
Okay. But all good on your end?
Yeah,
Okay.
they've already got approval on their water.
Kevin, that's a shared road coming back there?
Mhm.
Okay, and you still own the road?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I also had a 2-inch line a few years ago, ran across the road under the highway, so there's 2-inch line sitting there to tap for me to run back.
Well, you are in the building trades.
Yeah, you'd think.
All right, I need a motion.
Do you need to look at this?
Everything's good.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the final plat based upon all the signatures being signed for our, how would we do that? Well, all the signatures being signed?
I won't sign it until it's
Can't
done.
fulfill a building permit without.
He has to carry them around to get the signatures,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, that could,
They get a building permit.
that, we'll approve it prior, with you getting all the signatures signed before you start and get your permits.
Once the secretary signs it, which typically be, make sure that all the signatures are on there and it's recorded, then I can do a building permit.
I'll second. All right, Drain second, although Ed was fighting you for that one.
Okay.
I'll get the
well,
next one.
Oh, you'll get the next one, okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Thank y'all.
Here you go, we'll get these back to you, so you can fill in the sign.
And then you can just take them to City Hall and we'll let Janet know to come and sign it when you're ready.
I'll just bring them back to you.
Okay, moving on to zoning ordinance, we get to talk about plants.
Right, so this came up last month, and I recommended that we kind of take a step back and present, or bring before you what I've presented in the agenda packet. And so essentially, just as a refresher, the intent behind this was to make sure that native species were included in our plant classification list, to make sure that we align with what TDEC's requirements are for landscaping within wetland areas. And so what I've proposed is, or actually what's first in your agenda packet is section 708 of the zoning ordinance, which are the plant classifications. And I've highlighted the species that are actually in the list that TDEC provided. And then I've indicated whether it's actually in the native species list or it's just mentioned in the article but not on the list. So that it looks like there's actually a good variety of native plant species in our plant classifications already. I don't think we need to add or change anything there. I also included the pamphlet that I reviewed against in the agenda packet as well, just for your reference. And then the third item is actually what I recommend adding to section 708 at the very end of the section of the first paragraph, and I'll read it out loud. It's adding, quote, "In areas where designated wetlands are present, the property owner/developer/landscape architect shall install adequate landscaping that addresses the intent and purpose of this ordinance, as well as fulfilling the requirements of the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation." And then the following page is a resolution for the planning commission to pass should they choose to.
And now the resolution has to be passed by the council.
Well, the resolution would be what the planning commission passed. I have a draft ordinance though the town council would passed.
Yeah, this is our recommendation.
Yeah, the recommendation.
Right, that's what it's saying, I
Yeah.
recommend
Yeah.
that we do.
Any questions on this? This is just a follow-up of what we talked about last week, or last month. I've slept since
But it
then.
just makes it clear, so there's not any confusion with thinking that TDEC is doing something, we're doing something different with wetlands, so. I think it
Excellent.
sounds good.
All right, I need a motion.
It's a recommendation, right?
This is a recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation presented tonight on the landscape classification, plant classifications.
Okay, I need a second.
Thank you, Reggie, I said.
All those in favor?
Uh,
Okay, thanks for clearing that one up. All right. The fabulous IDA IES model light ordinance. Yep, that's that big one right here. Marilyn,
Well-
tell us about this.
Well, basically, everyone got one of these packets, correct, to review, and Janet, Jessica, and Nate went to this training, and these were recommendations that we adopt. As far as, the recommendation would be made to the city council to adopt a lighting ordinance for the community as we build and grow, if you had the opportunity to. And Ron, have you got an opportunity to look at this yet?
I glanced through the original, dark sky deal.
So how do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's gonna be fine, but I think you don't even wanna do it in commercial, you don't wanna do it in residential. And it's gonna be, the problem's gonna be identifying which new work or how much new work has to be done to fall under this ordinance. Just for instance, let's say you got a new truck stop coming in, totally from the ground up, certainly would have to fall under that, and the dark sky would come into play. But let's say you somebody's just remodeling, and they just got 3 or 4 outside lights, are those gonna have to come into play too? Does everybody fall in the same deal? That's something y'all need to work out. Now, I haven't seen what has been, proposed.
That's a good approach, but residential is not the issue, it's all this commercial lighting.
Yes.
So if you control the commercial, particularly with the truck stop, I think would be the direction you'd want to go with that.
But you would grandfather what's already here.
Well,
And I've thought about this too, about how to enforce this. The way you enforce it is have a Tennessee licensed engineer before you guys sign off on your site plan. You've got to have a Tennessee licensed engineer signing off on all the electrical outdoor lighting falls under the dark sky or falls under the ordinance. And they can sign off on it at that point, and he's the guy that has to make sure it happens.
but would that not add a layer? And I do understand commercial, and we're not trying to complicate it because, as you said, there's a lot of regs that people feel like are too strenuous, which we want to comply. But maybe this is something in the workshop with tiny homes we need to review a little bit more, because when we decide that we're doing what's right for what exists in the new coming, businesses, the hotels and the church plazas and all those things that are planning on coming. So I don't want to rush into it and us do something that's either too hard. I mean, you talked about it as far as the business too, Richard, or let's just make sure we do it right according to what we've got.
But I looked at it right, this is a model that you would pull from, there's a lot of options in here.
So let's just pull
You
them
can
on.
go to the Cadillac, or you can go down to the level, so I don't think we can just carte blanche.
Yeah, so I don't think we can either. So let's just, if it's okay, table it until next month and give us more time to look at the models and make us, and Earl, will you get a copy
I
of it?
recommend
Okay.
maybe we need a workshop to go through.
Yeah. So, are y'all good? somebody's good with that, even if we have to call you or Zoom with you, you know, because I know you can't be up here all the time, so.
I'm okay with Zoom.
All right, so let's just table that, and if you want to schedule a workshop, we'll look at the calendar.
And I would assume the city would take the first lead and change all their life.
I think we should, as we go forward.
It'd be hard to ask somebody else to do it if the city hadn't.
That's I mean, it's really right, and as we look at new infrastructure, and we look at preparing it, that's part of it. We can add that to the corridor plan, which we're working on with town hall meetings, you
And
know.
I'm sure we need a cost estimate on that, so I can't imagine what it would cost to retrofit all of it.
I do remember, this is very important, and I just have a vision of it when and it's now gone, right across the street from you, the car wash, when that went in and all the lights were right into the
Right.
bedrooms of the Monteagle Inn. Remember that? And I can only imagine the consternation that people had with that, so.
But I think it's something, like you say, Richard, we need to have a workshop
I
with planning commission and council, and Carl, if it can be, you know what I'm saying, if you'll take one of these and review it, you know, and then make your recommendations on what we need to do. And I agree with the infrastructure, we need, while we're looking for grants and funding, let's make sure we're the one applying it.
All right, so we're going to table that?
Yep.
All right. New website information, that'd be Janet, has worked diligently on this.
So each of you have a copy in your file of what, and it's a working document, and it can always be changed, and it would be on the website just to help people understand what we can and what we can't do, and what our regulations are, as far as statewide stuff, and so it would just go up on the website, and if there's any, and you guys have had it now for 2 months, so if you have anything that you need to change, you should have told me by now.
But you know we're behind.
I just had those 2 typos that we talked
Yeah,
about.
I corrected those 2 typos.
They were still in my copy.
Yeah, but I didn't send you a new
No,
copy.
okay.
She said.
Since y'all,
Well, I thought it was good information, I'm sorry.
since y'all talked about website, I should have brought it up when I was up there. Thank you so much for putting the building permit online. I have already had maybe 3 or 4.
Good.
Have been used, and we had a little debacle in City Hall, we got it worked out though. I mean, what we're gonna do is the blank permit will be still sent in to City Hall, but they will take the next permit that's numbered in line and put that number on that permit and throw that numbered permit away. That's the way that everything still gets a number on it, but it's based on the next available permit that y'all, so you can use up, your permits, and they won't be any hassle about it.
Okay, so it's very user-friendly, so we've
It
accomplished
is,
our goal?
and it works well, and thank y'all for doing that. That's been a big help for me, and sure, for everybody.
Great. This seems very user-friendly. We're just trying to make this process as user-friendly as we can. Do you feel like we have accomplished this with Janet's hard work? All good?
Has Earl reviewed this? Have you had the opportunity to review this information?
Which one?
Regional Planning Commission.
No, I have not.
If you don't mind, since he's involved with it, I'd like before we actually, based upon
You
him,
didn't have that? That's the latest one on my computer.
because a lot of this goes hand in hand with him, you know, and that we're all consistent.
It's in our file right here. It's these 3 pages right here.
All right, so we're just going to move that another month? Is that what you're saying?
Extend out.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you review that and then let us know next month if you think there's any changes we need to make as
I
well?
will do it.
Okay.
All right, our agriculture zoning district. Oh, yes. Garrett or Anya?
So what you have in your agenda packet, it's a sample of an agricultural zoning district. I pulled from the samples or the examples that I showed in the workshop last month, as well as pulling from different sources to kind of piece together what this would look like in the town of Monteagle. And the first page in your agenda packet is what a sample of section 402 would be amended to look like. Essentially, it's adding what I call the A1 agricultural zone to this section, and the highlighted sections in your agenda packet are what we need input on. This is just, and again, this is just a sample of what it could look like, that we need feedback on, what you would like the setbacks to be, minimum lot sizes, the maximum lot coverage, the lot width setback line, maximum building height in an A1 district. We'd like to get at least the planning commission and town council's feedback, and I think we're actually prepared, if not tomorrow, sometime in the immediate future, sending out a Survey Monkey survey to you all, planning commission and town council, to get your input on this. That way, and this goes in line with the next section too, the actual land uses for this zoning district. We want to get your feedback on what you think needs to go in the A1 or A1, whatever you want to call the actual district. What land uses you want to go in that district.
This says 5 acres, but I thought it was minimum 50.
You'll be
Right.
able to vote on, so when I send out the survey link, this is just a sample Garrett put up, but I'll have a bunch of options for you to choose, and basically you'll have a vote.
Okay.
And then we can come back with
Right.
what was the most popular choice.
Okay.
Right, which we wanted to go with Survey Monkey, except with you can do a lot of analysis and pick out who said what and that kind of thing. Again, this is just a sample. This is what I thought a farm to me looked like, was 5 acres, but again, I don't want to tell you what you need to have in your agricultural zoning district. We can definitely provide recommendations and actually provide examples of what we think you should approve, but this is just a sample.
And just to review, this will solve what? What will this help us with?
Exactly. So if you go to the third page on this agenda item, my main point actually has, it'll help to pull out agricultural land uses from the commercial zoning districts. That to me is the purpose of this zoning district. Because in my opinion, agricultural uses don't need to be under commercial districts, even though that was what was approved in 2019, I believe. I don't think it needs to be that way anymore. It doesn't make sense. So along with this establishing this agricultural zoning district, this deleting section 503 will coincide with that ordinance.
And then we would, just like we have to do R4, we would assign agricultural districts onto our zoning map, is that right?
That's what we need to address as well. We need to either establish agricultural zoning districts, which means telling people that their property is agriculture, or just essentially create the zoning district and allow people to rezone their property to an agricultural zoning district.
And that won't affect the spot zoning law?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, it's just according to the area where they want to be zoned at, right?
Right, I mean,
You could spot zone if you're looking at it that way. I mean, if you look at it from that part, because if there's nothing agricultural, then you're gonna put it there in the middle of something. So I think we gotta be careful on that definition.
sure.
I mean, just, Earl, what do you think? Because we don't want to create a debacle there.
That's correct. Explain to me the definition of an overlay.
Overlay?
Yep.
Anya, do you want to tackle that one?
I mean, simply put, it's like, your base zoning stays the same and you overlay another zoning district above it. So when I first brought it up, we had talked about it as a team, and then looking into it more, it's not really used, it's more used in very urban areas. I don't think it's gonna be the best fit for your community. I also, when we talked about spot zoning, I don't really think it's a good idea for us to identify just like parcels to be agricultural. I think it should be up to the property owner to apply to rezone, and then up to the PC to, recommend rezoning. But it would be spot zoning if it would only benefit that property owner, and it'd be to the detriment of surrounding property owners. So if there's a rezoning, we would send a letter to every surrounding property owner, and they would have a chance to have a say.
Well, see, the way the ordinance is written, which we do that, but it's not mandatory, and they do have to post it for 30 days. And there is a public hearing, but the point being, and I know Richard brought up a good point. We had talked about 50 acres, because, no disrespect, my dad had a farm, but it was in Pelham, but anyhow, people like baby cows and baby goats and baby chickens, but everybody may not want them in their backyard. So why would we create a situation? So I think it's really something, again, I think we need to do it, but I think there's going to have to be a size of the farm, and there's going to be some thought put into it.
I think in the survey that
Right.
Anya and I are going to send out, we'll have that question, and what I would like in that survey is having, your 50 acres, your 10 acres, your 5 acres, and then your acre, your half acre, and your quarter acre, just to see how how y'all poll. If you'd like to see those smaller agricultural lot sizes, so we can have residential subdivision or residential piece of property and have goats and chicken, if that's something that the town wishes to have.
Is Earl getting this too? Is he on the list?
Sure.
Okay.
We haven't created the list yet.
Okay, but I mean, if
Another
you do,
thing that we wanted to ask was how much public input
you want to add it to the town hall meeting later after we send out that survey? I mean, there's some of those things I think need to be added after we make it through the next town hall meeting, because, you know, the council and the planning commission, we usually start, you know, and get their input, and then we'll add the rest of it, just like we're doing the town hall meetings. So if we're gonna add it, you're gonna do that survey anyhow, and a mail out?
Right, but it won't be available until, well, we need to talk about that too, so I wanna talk to you about that after,
Well,
the survey.
Okay.
Because we're talking about two different surveys. I'm talking about ag uses.
Yeah.
Just for PC and town council, asking if you want that to go out to the public, and we should discuss the other survey later.
Well, I know it, but what I'm saying, there's a lot of more elements that have been added to this information that we want the public's input. We can actually do a separate survey just for that, but I think that needs to go before the town council, because the ordinance has to go before the town council, so you're not gonna be dealing with it till the end of March anyhow. So let's wait till the town council makes that decision.
Okay, for the ag land uses.
Not for them, because they haven't even seen it. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Nate? I mean, Nate's back there. Council hasn't seen it, so they need to see it, and then they'll know what after it goes out to the general public, you know?
What-
You're talking about the other survey.
No, I'm talking about the ag use survey.
Okay.
Needs to go out to the town council and the planning commission, then we can, first,
Then we
then
can
go
discuss
to
if
the,
you want public input.
to the public input.
Okay.
So,
Earl, go ahead.
Maybe I'm all wet on this, but I think it depends more on, rather than the size of the area, is how many feet it's gonna be from a residential area, anybody that's got homes or even businesses. In other words, the fenced-in part of an agricultural area needs to have what I'm gonna call a setback. 200 feet or something, around the area of it, where you're not gonna be impaired by animals.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one as well. I mean, because I want Dale Lane to have his yaks on his property. Any questions for this? So we are going to table? Is that what we're doing?
well, he's
I
gonna
don't-
send out the survey.
I don't recommend any action on this tonight.
No
This is
action.
just a sample
No
of what it
action.
could look like.
Just a
Then
discussion.
we need to have further discussion.
Thank you. All right,
Sorry, I should have made that clear.
thank you. All right, moving on to agriculture, we're gonna do a barn on a farm site plan. That's Matt. Gotcha. Oh, there's Matt.
Well, there's the new map.
The wife is here tonight, sorry. I have 5 copies of the updated site plan underneath them.
You want one?
I made more than this, I'm the
Okay.
secretary, so I need.
Yep, you did a good one.
Take a good one.
We can share.
I've got one.
Oh,
I'll take one.
so I think the question that was brought up last time was how far it was from the other properties. And we kind of tried to, if we zoomed out of our entire property, it would just, the agritourism part would just look like a little dot in the middle. So we kind of just tried to show you wherever anything was. So this is the dot. You can see 80 feet from where the wastewater plant is. From where our pole is.
Gotcha.
And then Country Mart's not even on there because it would be way over to the side and everything would be penned in right in there. But you can see where these, this little section on the
This.
side, the petting zoo. That's where the goats and the other things are. We keep the cows on everything else.
Got it. Does this meet your requirements?
Yes.
guess my question is, what would this site plan help you do? What would your immediate next steps be if this is approved?
Finish the barn and add in the playground equipment.
So that, I mean, after all, it's all good?
Yes, we've reviewed it against the site plan requirements, and it meets the requirements. Yes.
Wow, this has been a long
Does
road.
the site plan show the entire piece of property, or, sorry for me to?
No, it does not. It just shows the
By
sole.
Atlas, if I draw it.
Yeah, the property goes way back to the, rest stop, the rest stop on 24. But we don't own against 24, that's. The Bush property, I think. Yes, yes.
176 acres.
Yes, it's 176 acres.
And approximately how many acres will this be taking up?
I don't really know.
I think Matt said about 10 acres.
The agritourism
Five
is
to
like
10?
just a small little section.
Maybe 5 to
10
10.
out of 176.
And it's kind of set back really far back.
Is everything good with you, or all I know?
Once you agree on the site plan, I will meet, with Matt and whoever, and then we'll go over what needs to happen to make the barn come up to what needs to happen on it.
Okay.
And you're gonna have to have a septic permit,
Mhm.
for a septic tank and all those things, but I'll be glad to meet you.
I think we were told we weren't allowed to have septic since we have the wastewater going through, we have to connect.
Oh, so you can tie on the city sewer then? Okay, but that's even better.
I mean, you're pretty close to the surplus.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, once y'all sign off on that, y'all can get the test clean up, I'll come up and meet with whoever I need to, we'll iron out what it's gonna take to get the barn ready, and of course, playground equipment doesn't need a permit.
Right.
There's no structures in any, I can't read this, but there's no structures on anything else, it's just
It's just that one big barn
playground equipment.
and playground equipment.
I'm excited.
I hope.
I see something about a house up here on the top, what is that?
We wanted to wait till that got completely zoned agricultural for real, but
That's on the
I can
site.
show you,
It's on the site plan, right?
it's not on the site plan, no.
What is it, what is it?
I mean,
What is
where
it?
we would probably put it would be where this
That says their
letter
property.
A is for the
That
site
is
plan
their
for a
property.
barn on a farm. It would be pretty
No,
full
I
on
can't
farm.
read that. That says
Like I said, we have.
What are you guys seeing
It
that?
goes
Right here at
way
the
back
top.
to 24.
heat.
There's something house, what does that say?
Oh,
That's
that's
a bouncy
Bubba's
house.
house.
That's Bubba's bouncy
house.
That's Bubba's.
Okay, that's Bubba's bouncy house in Hobby Hill, and then you've got all these different little.
Are we gonna need a building permit for that, sir?
playground.
Bouncy house? Nah,
Or it's Bubba's, I don't like
Well,
that
he's gonna
anymore.
be
Any playground, otherwise known as the woods.
There's playscapes and stuff in there, yes.
You guys really got
Built
creative.
into the woods where there's like little hobbit houses, but like they're not structural, they're just, you know, like TP type of thing where kids can play in.
And the
and
plan
It's
sketch
nothing
on
that's
that.
tied into it. So it's,
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
road-
it would
so
be looking.
And that road's gonna
wouldn't
come
be in the
out,
habit of accepting that beyond it.
how do we get into it again?
You turn in, there's an easement right on the, right
40 by
past
80
the Dollar
bar.
General, so
Yeah.
it's the first one.
It's that first one right here with the gate,
This
right?
one, yeah, the second one is the one we intended because
That's
it
where
would be
they
right
want to
there,
drop.
but it's too high, it goes above the sewage, so it's just too high to get in and out of there. So we have to do that one, we have the road gonna go in here, and then it turns, you can see it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's on there. You can-
That'll work.
and the parking was just gonna be on the grass, correct?
Yeah, there's gonna be gravel parking lots which are on the new site plan,
Okay.
there's like, I can't remember how many you said. we
It
needed.
shows 15 parking spots.
15.
And overflow would be on the grass.
And overflow will be on the grass, yes.
I guess I'm just having a hard time seeing this first and comprehending it, but these petting zoos and stuff, I don't see any diagram that shows how far it is from these lots on 41.
On 40, I'm sorry, I don't have
I
it.
think, I think we're both struggling here with the fact that this is a plat with a sketch on it. It's not necessarily what I would consider a site plan. I would have thought the site plan would have taken this 8.5, 11 page and addressed what you're doing instead of this 1/3 corner and the rest being the plat. So it's difficult to understand what you're trying to do here. You're making it difficult on us anyway, too.
I mean, how far is it from this petting fence to here? commercial lots here?
Those are commercial
Yeah,
lots.
they're-
No,
Do you know what he's saying?
no,
There,
this was,
here.
this is so much
Here.
more complete
If
than
these
what
are
we
commercial lots, and
had.
this is what you said your concern was, Earl, earlier, the setbacks you need from point A to point B, that's what you brought up about agriculture, so do you know what this distance is from here to here?
Not the full distance from the back of the Nixon property to the parking spaces? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
From the,
I'm asking.
to the
from
petting zoo is what they're asking.
That's what.
I don't know.
No, it's
Immediately?
definitely within your rights to ask their surveyor to put it on the plan, or on the site plan.
But with my understanding, it's a process of you move the cattle from one area to another area, and bring the goats in, but they in this area.
Well, the
It's gonna be a
fenced-in area
rotation
is,
type thing.
the fenced-in areas, that's why there's different paddocks set up, because we put them in one paddock for a couple of days, and then you move them to the next paddock for a couple of days, and you move them to the next paddock, so they're not living in their own feces, and it's not as
My
clean.
concern remains the same, that area is far enough from any.
Yes, it's several
anybody that would
acres,
have
I
a
don't know
problem.
how many, I've walked it 100 million times, I can't
How
tell
far
you.
is far, how far is that?
I don't know.
It's a pretty good wedge.
Yeah,
If
it's not,
it's
it's
to
not
scale
2
that to
feet,
50
it's
foot
2
easement, right?
acres.
Yeah, but they're talking about putting on the other animals and how close they'll be to that commercial property, and that's what he's saying, once we zone it for this or for
But
this.
you've already got cattle there now, here, in the same area.
No,
but
he's
these are
talking
from
here.
there. Oh, you're talking.
He's talking here, how far is it from here to there?
Yeah,
That's what he's asking.
And my answer, all that I know, I would say several acres, not several feet, like you had walked it. So, I don't know exactly.
But Garrett, according to everything for the state, it's good.
Per the town zoning ordinance, site plan requirements, yes.
I think it,
Now fellas, that's up to you if we want to decide to add more
It does go
criteria.
back to the bluff, but
You can
can't-
definitely table it until next month to get more information, if that would make you feel more comfortable.
We need
Yes.
Richard, I'm all that.
You're
Well,
gonna
I mean,
let
is this all you're gonna do up there? There's gonna
Yes.
be nothing else on this other common ground that's here? So you're declaring that common, you're not gonna run cattle on it, you're not gonna, all the way
Run
up
cattle
past,
on,
on this property that's leading up to the back of these commercial
we
properties?
already run.
they already do
cattle.
that, it's already a favorite.
We already run cattle on that. But the petting zoo.
So I guess we already have
were-
an A1 classification.
That's the section I talked about removing, it's currently zoned C2, but the agricultural land use allows for agricultural land uses in the commercial zoning districts on properties over 50 acres, which this one is well over 50 acres.
Yeah, because that's 100 and some
Yes.
acres.
Yes.
That's how it's currently operating.
So it's legal.
What do you think?
I mean, if it's not a burden, it's not a problem now, I guess it's.
Right.
But you might want to clarify, it's 175 acres, we're not talking about a 5 acres.
Yeah.
So like with a setback, so that would be the reason if it's approved tonight, that's because of the size of that is already allowed, correct? Okay.
So the padlocks are back almost to the bluff.
Correct. Well, they're not almost to the bluff, but yes, they're
No.
back.
They're
Several
back there
acres
to the
from
bluff.
the
Yeah.
other lots.
This
Yeah.
is our sewer plant,
Next to
and
the-
it goes at
But I
bluff, and it's on this side of it, right, of the sewer plant, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, that's what I thought, and then the bluff property is back behind the sewer plant.
yes.
But their petting zoos go all the
Yeah.
way back,
Yeah.
almost to the bluff.
Yeah,
So
just
it's
so
a
the-
long way from 41.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm gonna ask one more time, there's no plans for anything else here? There's no slaughterhouse, there's no chicken houses, there's no,
Nothing that's not already on the property. We have that there. And we run a chicken house, but it's not one of
talking
those.
about commercial chicken houses.
No.
All right, any other questions? I mean, we're here to do the right thing, so.
I'm okay.
Okay, Ed?
All right.
All right, all good? All right, then I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the site plan for the barn on farm as presented.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second. No, go ahead, Doreen said she'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, Dean Lay. How are you? How are you, sunshine? Come on up here.
Glad to see you.
It's always glad to see you.
You got 3 minutes.
Actually, I got Tweety to go to, I've got another funeral home to go to tonight, so if I get up and leave, it's because you're
You're not mad?
explaining. I'm not mad,
Yeah.
just letting you know going, not after last meeting either, go for it, Dean, it's yours.
Well, I guess really we need to hear from Garrett. Well, let me back up. I guess we need to see, last night was a city meeting, and you guys approved the minutes of the special meeting? Was that done last night?
I did it last night.
Okay,
I'm with you.
so technically, that's, did y'all name the street
No, we're gonna go back to the next meeting,
at the next city meeting?
yes,
Okay,
which is the 21st of March,
okay.
this time.
So I guess Garrett needs to address, we corresponded some by email, and the site plan that I sent you today, I think the last thing I saw on it was, it can be a minor subdivision if that road extension is designated, or the length of it or something, I don't
Right, it
remember.
looked like it was still extending 100 feet
Yes.
past what was approved by the town. So it's
Yes.
like if it was shortened 100 feet to what the town approved
Yeah.
or accepted as public, then yes, it could be approved as a minor subdivision.
Okay. And with that temporary cul-de-sac in place where it is, or can it be that P, like we were talking about, because of,
Right, that's in the, I think it's probably the last line in the email. It said that the plat would require revision, so I assume you would have to show the temporary cul-de-sac as it exists going away, and I assume you could show the P.
The new one, yeah.
The new P cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
where the current temporary cul-de-sac
Yes.
is. As long as it doesn't go past what the town approved as, or accepted as public.
yes, and I've sent an email to Mike Berry, and I think they're out of town today, actually surveying this week on good days, so it'll probably be tomorrow before I hear from him, asking if we can do that and still have access to be tract 2 in the minor subdivision, which is the 2 acres. The big tract would be tract 1, and this 2-acre thing that we're asking for the minor subdivision technically would be tract 2, or reversed, it would be one or the other, right? And so, if we can do, not extend the city street, and the cul-de-sac would be shifted to a P, just like the letter P, it would still have the same radius, for the vehicles and everything, the emergency vehicles and, well, whatever the requirements, that it would still be a minor subdivision, and then the time limit of waiting until April to come back before you guys would not be a problem. If we extend the road the 100 feet as is currently drawn, which I would hope we would not have to do that, there's the regulation, and I think I brought this up at the special meeting, on the street, we would not want to construct it and then the construction run over it and all of that, and go ahead and dedicate it as a city street, and then all the equipment, heavy equipment, concrete trucks and all that run over it. It would make more sense to me to pave that 100 feet at the end of the construction, of the new construction, and then either Montego Development Company or the buyer of the property would comply with the regulations in the Planning Commission, and I think it says you can either pave the street up to the road standards in the beginning, you can post a bond, or you can, there's something else. Anyway, probably the most likely thing, if it's Montego Development Company, is we would do the 125%. I think it said the road inspector or something gets the cost, and the city has to approve that amount through, I think your road inspector would get the cost estimates or something.
It says the planning commission has to approve the cost. The cost has to be estimated and approved by the town road inspector. The planning commission has to actually approve that cost.
Okay,
But
but it's 125% of that, whatever the cost estimate. Say if Tinsley Brothers Paving, who is a reputable company, just using them for example, if they, and they know the highway specs and stuff, so it's got to be so much base, it's got to have, whether it's still 22 feet wide with 3-foot shoulders, or that, and this is what it used to be, I don't know what it is now. Or if you had the curbs, you didn't have to have the shoulders, whatever that is. In all likelihood, Montego Development Company would post that amount with the city. And that's in essence what was done with the section that was accepted at the special meeting, that $25,800 and something that Joe Lester paid to the town of Montego. It was just a pass-through from the town of Montego to Tinsley Brothers. and they built it to whatever the current road standards were in 2008. And that's why there's not been any maintenance done on it, because relatively, it's a light load, mostly private vehicles. There's a few trucks pull in there, you see, that'll pull in there during the night or something and park. And I don't think it was designed for that, but it's not posted that it's not. And of course, whatever delivery truck that Sonic would have would come across that. But anyway, relatively, there's not a lot of heavy loads on that. So, but what the whole point is I would hopefully get this, we have an understanding that what we're gonna do, or you guys have an understanding where we've been, and that this can get down to a minor subdivision staff approval, so we don't have to wait another 30 days. Now, the original option on that piece of property runs out at midnight tonight, so it may be a moot point for these people, but if there's somebody else, then we're gonna go ahead and have that in place, so we're not doing this whole process again. So I guess what I'm wanting is you guys need to back and forth here for a minute and make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then the minutes need to reflect that, so there's something to back up, and there's not a misunderstanding that what you said or what you meant is not what I thought you said, or vice versa.
Well, that's how we record it too.
Yep, that's,
So,
We cover all bases.
it's back to you, Garrett.
Sure, so I'd like to clarify, make sure we're on the same page for the agenda item that's on the table. The
Okay,
agenda item is the initial version that you sent. That's what's on the agenda, that's what the planning commission needs to take action on. That's only on the agenda because it's technically a preliminary plat, it doesn't have the road standards, it doesn't have this, that, and the other. It's lacking the information, therefore, in the subdivision regulations, it states that after 30 days, they shall approve it, or it shall be approved, and you shall.
take action.
Right, so you need to take action tonight. I'd recommend denial for that because we're already in discussion about the next version of it. It's just the technicality that this version needs to be denied first. And I'd also like to clarify whether you want to do it this way or not, withdrawing the version that you sent in today, if you're coming back with a different version. That way we're not in the same situation in April.
Yeah, I would probably withdraw the version I sent you today until I hear from Mike Berry, because I don't see an issue of him taking that 100 feet out and then turning that cul-de-sac, because it still gives access to track 2. And it'll give at least the 50 feet. So I guess Mike's question may very well be, based on that 50-foot radius, if you get that with 100 feet out, and that cul-de-sac becomes the letter P, does that meet the requirements?
Right, as long as there's 40 feet there.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think in the drawing it shows a 50-foot radius or something.
I assume there's plenty of room there.
Yeah, and there is, but I don't want to get into a situation where there has to be, say, 20 feet of road and then that cul-de-sac because of some reason we're not aware of.
Not that I'm
Okay. So if
It's my understanding that the town accepted that road as public to the extent of the cul-de-sac,
Correct.
yes,
which was approximately 262 feet.
yeah, whatever it is,
Whatever that
and
is,
the
that-
developer, and the whole deal in 2008 was, the cul-de-sac went in as a temporary cul-de-sac because it was gonna be moved, the Holiday Inn Express they were gonna build was gonna be toward the back of the property, and they didn't know which way the road was going to turn in that. They had like 8 proposed different businesses on their drawings, and so the developer, right now, Mont Eagle Development Company would have to pay for the surfacing to bring that, well, the temporary cul-de-sac would be a permanent cul-de-sac, or the P, or whatever it is. The town of Mont Eagle would not be responsible for the cost of bringing that up to the standard of the road. And I think you and I have had that discussion, right?
We did it in a special meeting.
Yeah, and even
was
before that, when
discussed
we
that,
met,
that the
yeah.
developer would be responsible for
Yeah, because
finishing the road.
it's the way I interpreted it, when it was a temporary cul-de-sac, and it didn't meet the finished road standards in 2008.
Correct.
And so that's not an issue, as long as it can still hopefully go. All I want to do is make sure if we don't extend the road and we change the position of the cul-de-sac, and it still connects to the road, and it still gives access to what I'm calling track 2, which is the 2 acres, that we can we still go through minor subdivision plat with staff approval?
Yes.
Okay.
See, and there's nothing else that needs to be done now that we've approved the road.
Well, I need to officially withdraw what I sent you today showing the 100 feet, in which I do that, and then I agree with him, you need to deny the site plan that was submitted in the beginning, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's correct. All right. Are we all on the same page?
I don't know, probably in about 30 days.
We need to deny the final plat.
We need to deny that what is on the agenda item, the final plat.
Either deny or withdraw, however.
Yeah, I can withdraw it officially if that will, yeah.
Yeah, that'll save.
Yeah.
All right, so you're gonna to withdraw this.
I'm withdrawing the final plat that's on the agenda there, plus I had sent him a revised from what you've got showing, instead of that street being 200 or 300 feet long, he drew it in as 100, and then left the cul-de-sac in its current, except extending it, and then make sure you understand that the plan is that cul-de-sac, that cul-de-sac is actually gonna be turned from what I call a westerly direction to a north direction, but you still have access to the tract 2 of the 2 acres that we're creating out of the 12 or 13 acres that it's out of.
I guess that'll be on the next plat, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that you guys get, whenever he submits it to me, I'll send it to the planning commission so that everybody's aware of what Anya and I are reviewing.
And that can be staff approved as a minor subdivision.
So it's both.
So it's not gonna be held up. This won't be held up
Yeah.
with the land sale. Now that the road's been accepted, it will not be held up, and y'all could do staff approval to sign up on this for the property sale.
Whenever the revised version comes, we'll make sure that
Okay.
But now the issue still has to be worked out, but you're saying, Garrett, that, on that, moving that cul-de-sac and turning it around, the developer, or Monaco Development Company, agrees and understands that the final finishing of that is at Monaco Development Company's expense.
Mhm, yeah.
But it will not be, are you saying it won't be, has to be shown, or it does have to be shown on the, what we submit, what Mike submits in the new drawing?
the new reworking of the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, but that won't affect staff approval as long as it's just the same dimensions, it's just turned, basically it's turned right.
I don't have any immediate concern with that.
Okay, so,
You good?
All right.
yeah,
So you withdrew?
yeah, so there's really nothing for you guys to vote on, is there?
No,
As long as,
we don't have to,
Okay.
just as long as you're withdrawing both of those
Yes.
things, so we get it
yes,
recorded.
so stated,
So it's on record,
yes, hopefully,
Yeah.
I got it right there.
and we've got it right here.
okay.
Thank you, Dean. All right.
We're gonna explain that again.
No, please don't get him back up here.
English.
That's right. But you can come back up there.
I'm leaving.
Okay, so we're moving on to hearing of persons having business before the commission. This is the open forum. All right, go for it.
Okay, put him on time.
A few months ago, I was here talking about apartments or multifamily, I guess, that's classified in a C2. And there was some discussion then, I think, that there was gonna be an overlay district and anyway, nothing, you guys, I think, everybody agreed to wait and see what happened on that. And the best I remember, in C2, you could have or living quarters on the second story, but you couldn't on the first. And then I guess my question is, and I'm not opposed to what's happening across the road, what I call the gun farm, which is probably, I shouldn't say that with the new owners, but everybody refers it to that. Behind the Nixon property, you can have agriculture, but across the road, you can't have an apartment. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And also, while we're on that thing, on the agricultural thing, saying it's gotta, there's gotta be 50 acres, is that for animal use or a cabbage patch, or what is, is a cabbage patch agricultural if you've got a 5-acre cabbage patch?
I don't think that's defined, that'll be in a workshop and it'll be discussed and have to
Okay.
go
We
forward.
adopted A1.
We
we have
did
an-
It's not an
change,
issue at the moment.
Okay, so then if I've got, say, I'm down the road toward, sand plant down there, and I've got 30 acres, and I only have 100 feet of road frontage, the way it currently, recommendation was, it had to be 50 or something, I think, was what we said originally. My argument would be if I had 30 down there, my 2 alpacas wouldn't be any more of a problem, for that down there, because, the fence is where the animals are going to. What difference does it make if it's 200 acres or 10 acres, depending on, I guess, the number of animals or what type of animals they would be, I guess.
it might be, according to what's next to you too. I mean, you might have a hotel next to you and they may not want them, or they may want a petting zoo. So I think that's some of the reason we're not ready to declare that it is stone yet. If I'm right, we've got to revisit this and make sure we do it
Yeah, we
right.
hadn't even discussed it.
It's not
Yeah.
even an issue at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not
I mean,
adopted.
that's
So there'll be an
We wanna look
input
at it
period.
carefully.
Yeah, that's what we were
Before-
saying, and that's what we were
Yeah.
just talking about. Once the survey's done with the council and planning commission, then we would send out a separate survey to the residents or business owners to see what their input is before we make a decision.
Well, a lot of times it's brought up at the town hall meeting thing the other night. A lot of times when you guys are voting or the council's voting, the public input thing is at the end of the meeting. And of course, I know you can't stop after every issue and let people talk, but sometimes people, if there's not a public hearing, if there is a public hearing, people are unaware, and then, especially in ordinance form, you get kind of surprised when you hear, even though you guys have gone through all of your things. And I think, to me, with a small town, it depends on, I can see where 10 acres would work for a certain agricultural use, or even 5 acres, depending on what is around you. And to say 50 acres, or 75 acres, or 175 acres, you're eliminating everybody but maybe 3 landowners.
Oh, that's the reason we haven't.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
just talking right now.
Okay, well, thank you for considering that, or listening.
And then back to the apartment thing, did we do something with that ordinance that certain, was it a case-by-case basis, Earl, that we looked at?
did.
I thought we did too, that we changed that for case-by-case basis on what could happen with
And
that.
approved it in the ordinance?
We'll have to go back and revisit it, because
Okay.
it was a while back, but we did
Okay.
address that, and you wanted it to be a case-by-case basis before
Yeah.
those changes were
Yeah, I
made.
remember that part.
That
I
was
thought
months.
and I thought we originally said something too in the overlay, but I think that.
No, we don't use, that's the first, tonight's the first time I remember you overlay being brought up, but we had addressed
Now, it was
that.
brought up,
It was one of our
3 or 4 months
options.
ago.
Yeah, it was one of our
Yeah, but I'm
options.
just saying, we're not,
Yeah,
That
but that's
was
out
addressed.
now.
That's out.
right.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
Yeah, I would do. I'm Tim Trahan, own Country Mart. I'm pretty much saying the same thing as well, too. We did hear agricultural overlay. We have commercial property. And to be just real clear, we're not opposing anything that Sriracha might do. But when we had to do something, we had to do full site survey, setbacks and everything else. Now, we were listening to the meeting, I heard you guys kind of having a conversation. So I got in my car, I came over here. So I'm not sure, did you approve what they were gonna set up right now? And if so, what are the setbacks on the Sriracha property?
Yes, we approved it, and there were setbacks involved.
Yes, there are setbacks for the C2 commercial zone.
Okay, well, as an example, from Country Mart, how far will they be set back? Because I never heard setbacks. Was it, there's points brought up about, it's a couple acres away. Well, that's not defined. So it's like anything else. I don't care if it's 800 acres, you still do a site survey, and you still show your setbacks. You still show the buildings, et cetera, egress, blah, blah, blah. I haven't heard any of that tonight.
So setbacks in C2 zoning district, it's 30 feet from the front, 10 feet from the sides, and 10 feet from the rear.
That's a problem for commercial property. So that, I still disagree based on this property actually being set up for agriculture. It's commercial. So the fact that, yeah, they were allowed based on an ordinance to have cattle on it, the exception wouldn't allow them to do what they're doing now. And I don't have a problem with them setting up as long as there's some guidelines and they're set far enough from the property where it's not encroaching on the commercial property and going to devalue their property, which is our property as well. So I would think that a survey would be issued and input would be provided. And I agree too, after the fact, if someone's approved, come back here and have a comment, that's kind of tough.
So, can I address?
Absolutely.
My immediate thoughts are the Spracios, when they want to put a house on their property, at some point in the future, they're going to want to rezone this agricultural zoning district. I assume that's what they're going to want to do. In that process, it'll currently be zoned C2. The planning commission has the authority to rezone just a portion of the property or keep the main corridor of Main Street along there, keeping the commercial corridor that I believe is in line with the town's vision as commercial. And then that would also coincide with the removal of this agricultural land use section that has the current allowance for agricultural land uses on properties over 50 acres in commercial zoning districts. So I think that might address that issue. It's just, it would have to be on them to request whenever they rezone.
Well, I agree with him on this tonight, that this is what Richard brought up, and this was their concern. You know what I'm saying? They did have commercial property, and we asked about how many, and they said a couple of acres. And that was the reason, that was based upon the information we give tonight. But if we're gonna do this, just like Earl said, it's your neighbor and the setbacks, regardless if it's your 5 acres, Dan, or if it's 100, or if it's your 75. So before we do this, I know you wanted to get this one passed, but still not passing something can cause a problem. Once we think it out, because we did this based upon it being 176 acres and it already having cattle on it, which run along the fence, you know what I'm saying? So, but this is not totally defined. Now, again, you asked the question. We were told a couple acres, and that was recorded. We all know what's an acre, the distance. So we're going to have to rely on that on this one then. But we were told a couple of acres
but
on this farm
I
property.
can have a split of 2 acres. I can have it 50 wide by, 53,000, whatever, 8 square feet an acre. So an acre doesn't define a setback.
Actually, it'd be more than a setback.
That goes back to what I was talking about. We need to define how many feet you can have animals to any kind of
Any person.
commercial area. I mean, 200 feet, 300 feet, that's what I'm talking about when I say I talk about the setback.
There's a
It's
65
defined
foot
already.
easement.
Because it's
What's
not-
it defined? Nate
It's
said,
defined as 1,000 feet in the current Montego code that several of us are in the code.
municipal code though, right?
Yeah, which would apply.
Would apply to this too.
All of that is subject, so the only comment I was gonna make is that we deal with a lot of the nuisance issues that are sometimes associated with animals within the ordinances already. And one of the things that we've been talking about in the codes committee, where we're trying to think about the codes, is that we've also got a very arcane permitting process that nobody uses. And after that permitting process, there are all these rules that allow the town to enforce nuisance when there's a problem. And so we have the opportunity to update that ordinance to deal with the concerns I think that people have without trying to make it formulaic. Like Dean said, it may be, or maybe it was Earl that was saying, it's about what's happening and what's happening next door. And those current ordinances talk about being a nuisance to your neighbor, and they have several definitions for nuisance that allow the town to take action when it's needed, but don't force the town to be overly prescriptive within the zoning ordinance. So,
And I agree with that. Before we get too far, I want some smart planning, so, and we're not saying we're against what they want to do. We think it's a great idea. But like they said, it's 175 plus acres. There's space that you can put there with the highway to the west of them. They could still have 10 acres and not encroach in other people's property. I mean, in the sense where it devalued the property. So being that it got passed, I got my car. I wasn't sure how you guys finished it. I just heard that it's about 2 acres away, which didn't make sense to me. So.
Well, we've been through this process, this is our 4th month, trying to figure this out for them, because it is 176 acres.
And I did raise that concern that was a shoddy drawing to make any determinations on setbacks or anything else on that site plan, that we need to maybe set our goals a little higher on the submittals we get.
And we had to do the same. I mean, we had to do a full property survey, show fences, so setback,
Right.
parking, everything.
Well, now they had to show parking and stuff on it.
I-
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Because
did.
Earl, that's the reason I asked Earl tonight, do we not, and they'll have to get permits and everything, because somehow, a lot of this happened, and we didn't have everything submitted, did we?
I just think that surrounding property owners need to be protected.
And they do have to be protected.
It's a great location for that.
Because
Treatment plant and a lot of acres.
Country Mart's got restaurants in it, and besides that, you know. And another thing to think about, if you've got 100 head of cattle on 175 acres, that's okay. But if you put that 100 head of cattle on an acre, then that creates a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Feed pen, yeah.
Yeah, plus it's everything else, that they're gonna have pigs and chickens and et cetera, et cetera. So if they have a site that's picked, and you're saying, yes, within this 10 acres, it can be developed for this business that you, agribusiness you wanna do, and everyone works for everybody, I think that's a great idea. My concern is just that I'd like to have some input location-wise, it's gonna affect the business owners.
Have you seen this? Do you want a copy of it today?
Yeah, good
I mean, you can take it with you. I mean,
I'll wait and grab a copy afterwards.
well, I've got it with me, so just give
Okay,
it this way. Go
okay.
to the funeral.
Okay, all right, so.
Go ahead, Garrett.
So, as an adjacent property owner, how far away would you like to see them be?
2 miles. No, I'm kidding. You know,
I'm just trying to get
no,
input.
I understand, but I'd have to take a look at it, see what their idea is. I want to make sure the topography actually works for them as well. I mean, not looking to put them in a ravine somewhere where they have a lot of additional work to put in there. So I'd have to kind of see, the land is kind of rolls in that area too, but there's also the property in front of us, and I don't want to speak for the property owners.
Well, and again, also, you've got that commercial property right along the road there, 4 or 5 different lots. Somebody fixing to buy that, and there's gonna be animals on right behind them. I mean, that.
I have a
Well,
question.
there is now, they said they're running cattle.
There already is.
I know, but that.
Maybe why those laws didn't go.
Well, it could be.
Question, please. Nate? Correct me if I'm wrong, the codes that we are adopting give a 1,000-foot setback.
That's the code that's been there since the 80s.
Right, but we did not take that out or look at removing it.
And that's.
Isn't that still in place?
Well, I, in the revisions that we talked about, we
Yeah.
recommended reducing it and taking the permit away. So,
Yeah.
and I don't remember, I think it was 250 or 500 feet, I can't remember what we talked
All
about.
right.
But that hasn't been done yet.
No,
Nothing's
that's
been
not
adopted
on
by
the
the council, because, and just to clarify, there is a group of people looking at municipal codes, because ordinance and codes were not together, so as this group to look at it, there's what, 7, 80
Make
odd
it a little simpler.
that are doing it, and they're going to be cleaning those up where they're consistent, so that still stands, and we'll make sure that they're done consistently. So that's another thing, because we have municipal codes.
It only
That
applies to
applies.
residential districts, it doesn't apply to commercial districts at
Right.
all. So, but that's something that we can, as we talk about revising it, that's something we can put in. So that 1,000 feet is only referring to residential.
Thank you.
Okay, well, maybe I can meet with them out there and kind of see what this is. But you guys already kind of passed the general location, right, where this is?
Yeah, this has been on the agenda for 4 months.
Well, I know they've had conversations, but they never had a site survey. This is the first time I've seen a site survey, so.
Yeah.
I thought that if I submitted a site plan commercially, that it had to be signed by a surveyor and.
Usually it has a stamp on
Residential,
it,
it
yeah.
could be a
It's
sketch
got-
or something, is
it's
there
a-
language in there about
That's
that?
not signed by,
This is not signed by.
this is not signed by anyone.
But it
Planning Commission has the authority to require that, yes. It was done by Barry Surveying.
right,
Wrong.
but it doesn't have, does that have his signature like the regular survey?
It doesn't have your,
It's got a
it
stamp.
doesn't have your survey,
Has
it's
a
gonna have
stamp.
yours, it's gonna have yours.
Represent the property.
Right, yeah, and so I thought
I know, but it's supposed to.
in the current standards, it said on a commercial site plan was much more stringent than on the residential side. It named 3 or 4 things that you had to have on that commercial site plan.
The sign off.
Or submit on
Yeah. In our current regulations, I think at one time, it said on the site plan, had to be by a registered engineer, surveyor. Yeah, and it had to meet, I don't know if it had signatures or not, but it would show setbacks and address everything that you guys were talking about.
All right, well, let me ask you something before we go any farther, since it's gonna come back to the council. All right, I did ask you, Earl, you know, if you felt comfortable with it, if this had been looked at, and I asked you, Gary. So I'm gonna take responsibility as a mayor. It's my fault if it happened wrong, and we'll have to fix it. Because if we were supposed to have a site plan, then you know what, we did something that we need to fix here tonight and not take it any farther to protect the property owner. If we did it right, I'm asking you again, because honestly, I just got in from Kentucky last night. I did review this stuff, no excuse, but it's my fault. So let's clean this up before we leave here tonight. That's the reason we're recording it. Was this done properly?
Right, so what you have in front of you, what you approved was a site plan. And the language under Chapter 10, Section 1002, site plans required, that's the title of this section, states, depending on the nature or intensity of the proposed land use or when there is uncertainty as to building setbacks, easements, property lines, or utility locations, the enforcement officer or planning commission may require that a site plan be prepared and stamped by a licensed engineer, surveyor, or architect. It was prepared by a licensed surveyor, but it was not stamped.
Yeah, I think the definition of site plan is, you're
Yeah,
kind of
it's
cherry
stamped.
picking.
I'll take that back.
It's stamped.
But I think that last month what we discussed is that this is an agricultural land use, not a commercial land use.
But it's-
So, and he's approved for agriculture, so he was submitting a site plan for an agricultural use as defined by Tennessee code, because Tennessee recently very broadly.
I understand it, but
defined
everything I've ever
agriculture.
done, a site plan has to be representative of the property. It's like anything else, even with the building plan, if you have a site plan, you take 1 acre of it and you put a house, it doesn't represent where this place is actually going on the property. When this, say site plan, you're actually cherry picking exactly what you want from the site plan. Typically, site plan is the property.
There should be some.
So, Earl, I'm gonna refer to you.
I was referring to what Garrett and Anya and Southeast Economic Development District, in my opinion, if they say that it meets the definition of what a site plan is, I agree.
And I'm gonna stand by that as well.
Earlier, they're not requiring any kind of site plan when he puts the barn in,
No,
just a permit.
no, not that was.
Well, if I need to, we will. I mean, I'm serious about that.
When you nominate it.
Yeah, no, not really.
State of Tennessee, agricultural uses, you can put a barn up without a building permit, as long as it's gonna be used for nothing but
Yeah.
a barn.
Okay.
So, to answer the question again, was it done according to the process we are supposed to use?
Yes.
Okay.
I refer to Garrett,
Okay.
if he says it is, I agree with him.
Okay.
And why was it done that way? Just
I
because
still-
Nate
I
says,
still- I would still, I'm not on the planning commission, but I would still really recommend that plan would show more than what it did.
Well, aren't they going
Agreed.
to,
But
before they do anything, won't they?
Right.
have to
if it
submit
meets the
That's
criteria of
final
what Monteagle
plan?
has adopted as far as site plans go,
Agreed.
That's what Anya and I were both talking about, the site plans for quote-unquote structures. The only structure is the barn, and that's the reason why this issue came up in the first place, in the permitting process. So the barn is the only thing that the site plan is really required to show. All the other items were requested to be shown by the planning commission. And again, getting back to why the site plan is required for an agricultural land use, it is in a commercial zoning district, therefore a site plan is required. That's what we told Spray Show from the beginning, is that in the future, since it's in a commercial zone, a site plan will be required. And that's kind of where it's
I'm not disagreeing with that, but this is not a site plan. This is actually an area on the site.
legally could this body rescind their adoption of that so-called site plan for further review after consideration.
I am not comfortable with that. We gave them, this has been going on for 4 months. We voted on it. I am not comfortable with that. What say the council or the commission? Okay.
Will they be submitting another site plan, a more detailed site plan other than this one?
We did not ask for it. We did not ask for
We
it.
did not ask for it.
Can we go back and ask for that now?
well, then if you rescind the motion and it was just made and asked them to do the site plan, yes, you can. That's what Earl just told us. Make a motion to rescind it. That means
Let's
they have
make
to
a
come
motion
back.
to rescind it.
I'd just like to see, I mean, there again, I'm not on the planning commission, you guys are doing a great job, but I'd just like to see, some lines on the site plan.
Well,
So this
if
is
we
to
rescind it,
everybody's
It's
commercial
gonna put it out
property
once a
around.
month is all, but it will be a site plan that will be requested.
and they can come back with more detail.
Yes.
Okay, I don't, once again, I'm gonna be very upfront about this. As a person going in front of the planning commission, and we have approved it after 4 months, I am uncomfortable pulling the rug back out because one person has questioned it.
Well, can I speak to that real quick?
Absolutely.
Now, regarding the 4 months that's been going on, the whole process was how to try to shoehorn this thing in. Was it gonna be a agricultural overlay, which is typically used in urban developments?
Right.
And you put it in there. It's not warranted for this area, it never should have been, but that's what was stretched out for months. This site plan was never ever presented. It was discussion, they wanted to do that, and I appreciate that. I'm not saying that we don't want them to do it, but it should have been allowed some input. This might be perfectly fine. I'm not saying that this is anything that would be objectable to any of the owners next to it, or us.
Well, I want to say let's rescind it because I don't feel like this guy has come to the planning commission with the proper papers that he needs to come with at each, for 4 months. I don't feel like he's presented the paperwork he needs to present. One time he comes in, he has no paperwork, he just comes up here and talks. We had no clue what he was talking about.
Well, I think that the problem that happened here, and we're not saying it was anybody's fault,
No.
but Earl, you issued a permit, because we were asked this question, for a stick barn or pole barn, correct?
Pole barn.
And then the next thing we know, it's got sheetrock and electrical and bathrooms in it, and Earl's like, wait, stop here. So that's what caused the delay for 2 months. Now, she's making a motion to rescind it and to come back with a full site plan with dimensions on it.
I'll second her motion.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second.
All right.
Didn't they submit one to you like that, and the consensus was that it was not readable? I mean, that's what Matt told me, that the first site plan submitted showed the whole property, and it was hard to see what was there, and they did this as a favor to the council, so it was easier to see.
If I remember correctly, they submitted a site plan that showed just the barn on it, and then that came to the planning, that was sent to the planning commission, and they requested all of the proposed ongoings that were gonna go on the property. That's where we got this version, that shows the playgrounds, the jump house, and so on.
They have done what we had asked.
Madam Chairman, can we have a vote?
All right, we have a motion to rescind. We've got a second. Any further discussion? I'm going to take a roll call. Richard?
I agree.
Ed?
Agree.
Janet?
Agreed.
Marilyn?
Yes.
And Doreen?
Yes.
I have a no. Ayes have it.
Can I keep this?
Yeah, you can keep that
Okay,
one,
and-
but, so, Garrett,
Yes, clearly understand what we just did. If we could, Marilyn,
yes.
would you repeat what we just rescinded their approval, correct?
We rescinded the approval based upon a full site plan, coming back to, with dimensions and measurements to all locations, to buildings, and
More detail.
more detail, a full site plan.
Real site plan.
And it needs to be
And
large,
those-
on the site plan size instead of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Scale.
I mean, we would ask
Properly
anybody else
scaled.
to do that, so.
All right, any other people
Appreciate it, thank
for
you.
discussion?
Because you're setting a precedent right here if you don't.
If we don't do it right now, and I hate it, it's
That's
just
right.
1 month delay, and the property's already been sold.
So who do we have to, who has to vote?
It was screwed up.
We did it.
All right, any other further discussion? So does that mean that anything that we approve gets rescinded and that's okay?
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Dean? Outstanding. Any other further discussion?
Yeah, what does that mean?
That means that we can rescind anything.
You always can do that. That's Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, so be it.
Second.